Hello, folks. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So, is Joe Biden at all serious about stopping record gas prices at the pump? Well, here's all you need to know. At 10:15 this morning, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm met with 7 major oil company CEOs. Then, at 3:30 this afternoon, President Joe Biden met in the Roosevelt Room of the White House to talk about windmills with labor leaders and governors and various green windmill makers.
And together, we're about to build a better America. I really mean that. I think a better America.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's look at that again. The afternoon meeting with the president, the boss, in the Roosevelt Room. But the energy fossil CEOs meeting with the underboss in the energy department in the morning. What's wrong with this picture? Well, since Uncle Joe is in Washington, not Rehoboth Beach, might he have sat around the table with the energy people who could actually solve his oil and gas problem? Nah. Much more fun to talk windmills. It's a question of priorities, right? By the way, I am reliably informed the energy CEOs did not know about the afternoon windmill meeting with the boss. So I think all that just says it all. The Bidens actually believe that $5 gasoline and $100 oil and 10% inflation is going to be solved by wind turbines and solar farms. This is not science. This is not common sense. This is left-wing ideology, radical climate obsession. And American working folk are going to continue to suffer with high food and grocery prices along with outrageous gasoline and diesel costs. Now, if the president had attended the oil and gas CEO meeting, it might have been a very important, even turning point meeting. But he didn't. And so it wasn't. Participants tell me it was polite and in that sense constructive. At least Ms. Granholm didn't insult the CEOs the way Biden has. But when they talked about pullbacks and regulations or restrictions, permitting, Jones Act changes for transportation, even short-term waivers of overly restrictive environmental regs, on each of these points would increase supply, okay, and therefore reduce prices. The Energy Secretary was not able to satisfy the concerns or the suggestions of the oil people. It's really a pity, so nothing happened. And nothing's going to happen, except the American economy is going to continue to suffer, along with the American workforce. There's no give in Biden's rigid climate ideology. He's held hostage by the woke greenies and the labor unions and some of their allies in the renewable fuel subsidy and tax credit game. That's right. He's not going to give an inch to fossil fuels. Biden is completely isolated. I mean, I think he's afraid to go and face the oil people after his recent insults and his blatant factual misstatements. In the Energy Department press release, it says, quote, the Secretary made clear that the administration believes it is imperative that companies bring supply online to get more gas to the pump at lower prices. Well, yeah, but how exactly are they supposed to do that? They can't get permits for new drilling or refineries or pipelines. Exactly how are they supposed to do this? Burdened by extremist regulations from Ms. Granholm's own Energy Department and the Interior Department and the EPA and the Securities and Exchange Commission that now thinks it's the Securities and Environmental Commission. How exactly are these oil companies going to produce more or refine more? Somebody please explain that to me. By the way, if you have a president and an energy secretary, among many others in the administration, who are constantly telling us that the solution to record gas prices is solar and wind farms, and that the ironclad policy is to abolish fossil fuels, well then, why would these companies mount any expansive investment campaigns when they know they may be out of this fossil business altogether? Now, after all, the cavalry's coming, and the Congress is going to go Republican this November, but the Biden White House and executive branch, well, they can just keep issuing these anti-fossil fuel regulations. That's all. These big fossil companies report to their shareholders, who own the companies. These investors will want management to deploy their capital in the most efficient, highest return rate possible. Joe Biden's telling them, do not invest in fossil fuels. Even though that used to be your business, it's over. It's good business for Russia, which is now back to peak pre-war oil production. It's good business for the Saudis, the Iranians, the Venezuelans, but it's not good business for American companies. You know, you can't just order more gasoline. There's a whole process with a long lead time. And this strategic petroleum business has failed utterly. A federal gas tax holiday, dead on arrival. Gasoline rebates of some kind are a laughingstock. So, the president and his energy secretary just decide to order the CEOs. Remember immaculate inflation? This is like immaculate refining. Now, I trust the Lord in all things, but it's not clear to me that he's going to magically produce new supplies of refined gasoline. That may be a little too earthly and material, I suspect, for our Creator. Final point on this whole story. I don't understand the politics of this, okay? Put myself in Joe Biden's shoes. If I were Mr. Biden, and I was getting absolutely clobbered in the polls, across-the-board polls, and my party is cruising towards a major election defeat under these greenie policies, I probably want to change, reset, show some flexibility, do something that makes consumers and motorists and workers think there's somebody in the White House who has eyes and ears. But no, the Bidens double up or they triple up, same old failed policies. Not even one little meet and greet cup of coffee with some of America's biggest CEOs. It's a pet tragedy. I'll just conclude. It's a terrible story. It's a big disappointment. Anyway, that's my riff this evening.